Yo. Easy E in the building. We dropping the beats. Today, we have a very special episode for you guys today. We have our first guest.
We're so excited about it.
I'm honored to be the first guest.
In one Mr. Nic Rawhani.
Hello.
The beautiful Mr. Nic Rawhani.
Thank you.
I haven't actually known you for that long, but I've known you for long enough to develop quite a deep, loving, caring relationship with you.
Meaningful.
He's
friendships.
a very deep, caring, and loving individual, and I think it's addictive. I think you're addictive.
Wow.
I think I'm addicted to you.
Damn.
I love you.
Evander, I love you too. I'm already on the show. You don't need to button me up anymore. I'm here.
No, one thing that Nic has done in the years I've known him is he's always been a forward thinker and what I would refer to as a pioneer.
Wow.
And as a result, he's built what I would consider one of the more premium businesses that I've heard in a very long time in Vula.
Vula. Shout out Vula. Vula.vc. Check it out.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
Plug.
Thank you. Got a plug.
And we thought, who better to kick off our guests than someone who has really done something that's going to change not just his life, but a lot of lives along with it. So, someone that's building something that matters and is as impactful as what you're doing with Vula deserves a platform, needs a platform, in fact. And that's what we're going to try to do here today.
Amazing.
Platform, my friend.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It's an exciting time. I think it's an exciting time for all of us. Just before we kick this off, we said 2025. Something feels interesting about this year.
Yeah,
it's a phase change.
Everyone has it. Everyone's feeling it.
Yeah, it's like COVID, but for inspiration.
It's like a better, like
the opposite of COVID.
The universe is compensating for COVID. I feel. And so everybody's sort of feeling this pull towards improvement, towards focus, towards conscientiousness. And we've been working on Vula now for just about 2 years. We just had our 2-year birthday anniversary where me and my co-founder got together and said, we're going to do this. And we felt that phase shift with the business itself, where it's gone from kind of pushing to pulling.
Okay.
And
pushing through pulling.
Yeah, it's a beautiful time to be alive. I'm grateful, and I'm also grateful to be here and be your first guest.
And that's phenomenal. And thank you so much for you. Actually, your first guest. We have 2 guests on today, actually. So we've got you, and as well as Evander's beard.
I never expected it, but I'm thankful.
It's actually not. That's not James Harden. That is Evander.
So my lineage, testosterone is very low, and this beard is in fact a testament to us trying to form new paths.
Amazing. We're so glad to hear about.
Yeah, I think on this couch is almost like the spectrum of like how aggressive testosterone can be.
Yeah.
Because from like 7, I had a moustache. The people, like primary school people are like, "Are you sure that you're in grade 1?"
Yeah. You always know someone is very hairy when you look at their knuckles.
100%.
If their knuckles have hair, you're like, Jesus.
Check it out. That's how you tell.
This guy's busy.
Guys, it's called the Persian carpet, okay? And what it does is that it allows you to survive across multiple terrains. It's how the Persians took over. Wow. We don't regret it.
Okay.
Well, didn't take over at the Battle of Thermopylae. Throwing gang signs for 3,000 years ago.
Let's go.
Greeks to where it's at, boy.
Very niche history joke.
Very, very niche. But before we kick off, welcome to Evander's Beard and to you, Nic, as well. We always start off with a question, right? And it's got nothing to do with business or anything. Just to kind of get a better understanding of you, who you are philosophically, and how you work, and how your brain works. So in this obviously very serious and in-depth question, what is the largest animal that you think you could kill with your bare hands?
Emotionally?
So can I start? This question is very topical because I don't know if you've seen this. The zeitgeist of my Instagram and my algorithm is very weird. So
maybe the gorilla.
But the gorilla, the 100
that's
man.
all I can see.
Yeah,
that's all I see on Instagram.
The 100 man versus the gorilla.
Insane question.
Okay.
Here's my question, just back to you, so I can clarify, give you good quality answer.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
Are we talking just like purely physically, or are we also talking emotionally? Because like I think
the
the bigger the animal is that you kill with your bare hands, I think the more shame you're gonna feel afterwards.
Oh, I thought you meant you wanted to break down the animal emotionally
is
as
this
well.
like
so did I.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking like there's loads of like non-aggressive animals that I could kill with my bare hands just because they're not gonna fight me back.
No.
That's a good point, actually.
No. I think so. Let's set the rules, right?
Yeah, please.
So you're in like an arena of some kind,
Okay,
so you
cool.
can't go
Gladiator
anywhere
arena.
else.
Got it.
The animal is also trying to kill you.
Okay,
So it's not
okay.
it's not like
Friendly,
it's
be-
doing the
why
best.
are you hitting
It's doing
me?
the best that it
Yeah,
can.
Yeah,
okay, fine.
it's doing the best that it can to kill you as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
And you can't use any tools, and neither can
No
the animal.
tools. So I need to basically be able to just use my natural environment to kill the
Yes.
largest animal that I can.
And there's nothing there.
Okay, cool. The answer, I'm in an arena.
Yes.
The answer is the blue whale. I just need to stand back and watch
That's
it
a
die.
fuck.
That is the best
That
answer.
Are you in Mensa? Are you?
I honestly,
I never thought about that.
I never thought about that. That is such a good answer.
You should have added next time. You should add it to answer that wherever you are, you have to fight
In its natural environment.
habitat.
But you didn't get it this time.
Yeah.
So.
No, he definitely won that. That is.
Dude,
I mean, I was kind of joking by saying to work out how your mind works, but actually, you're kind of a genius.
that was crazy. That was so impressive. Because I was thinking like tiger, but I
Yeah.
bald.
No way.
I'm dead.
No way. Boy. I
You could take on a
No,
tiger.
but if I had to say, he would probably be like a koala,
The koala's the biggest one.
biggest one.
I heard that koalas,
ostrich.
if they're not eating eucalyptus leaves, like basically there's a chemical in eucalyptus leaves that keeps koalas super calm.
No way.
And if
No
they,
way.
because everybody's like, oh, koala, slow moving
So
animals, like
relaxed.
super chill, they're cuddly. Boy, if that thing doesn't get its eucalyptus leaves, it's
damn.
coming for you.
Oh,
and those
shit.
claws.
It's like crack.
It's like crack.
It's like they're stealing from your
It's like
house.
a chill. It's like
damn.
they're kind of like
They're quite aggressive.
yeah, they're quite aggressive. So this
Maybe
is
you
like,
couldn't take a koala then.
Yeah, unless I have
no, if
eucalyptus
you-
in the
you
pocket.
just-
Yes,
as long as
yeah.
you've been eating the eucalyptus, you can do
Fine.
it. Probably like a sloth as well.
Sloth,
Again, that's why I
yeah.
was saying emotionally, for me, like the blue whale also is better because it's a bit hands off. I just,
Yeah.
I can talk to it while it's dying. I can kind
can
of
soothe
be a
it.
death doula, while it
Yes.
goes to the other
Yeah.
side.
You can
pray
If
for
I-
it.
If
You
I have to
can-
like kill a sloth, I'm gonna feel terrible. It's like,
Yeah.
man, the sloth
Yeah,
as a
true,
family.
true.
I prefer not to do the killing.
I think I
Fine.
could kill a cheetah. I think I could take one out.
I've heard this
Have you
before.
Yeah.
like seen a cheetah in real life?
South African
have.
guy,
And
of
you've like
course.
played with it and stuff.
Yeah.
I was super scared
Oh
of
yeah, I
cheetahs,
played
man.
with. No, I haven't played with one.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to
What?
kind of meet a cheetah,
No way.
and it was super scary for me actually,
I can imagine.
because it's like it can do some damage.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's frame it correctly, right?
Yes.
If you were to fight a house cat, like a
Yeah.
really enraged house cat,
Yeah.
I would fuck that up. Yeah.
you think so?
The cat.
I don't think it's as easy as you think.
It'll do
It's
some
like
damage.
a raging house cat.
No, I would definitely take out a cat.
I don't think you're giving enough credence to cats.
Yeah. I don't think that you understand like an animal, like once the gloves are off and it's doing whatever it can to
Yeah.
survive, like you're at least losing an eye.
Bro, a raging house. Think about a
kill it.
raging, clawing house cat.
Guys, I was a boarder at St. Albans College. I can survive most things.
There's one other thing that I want to talk about because we're talking about killing animals here.
Fantastic
I've
way
been
to start the pod,
exploring
by
this
the way.
concept with
Peter,
my
we
wife.
love you.
I've been exploring this concept with my wife, which is like
He's married, by the way,
should
ladies.
we-
Yeah, back
should
off.
we should we start like moving towards more vegetarianism? Is that better for the environment, etc.? And it really is better for the environment. It's it's really my own lack of discipline. But I also feel that there's this thing which is like, if you're willing to kill an animal, you're allowed to eat it. So like you should be able to kill a chicken, or you should be able to like kill a goat in order to then eat that meat. It's like an unlock game.
I kind of disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think taking out the violence of eating is pretty good,
So yeah, I
think
just
it's
feel
a-
like this is
Is it, sorry, just to clarify, is it the capacity to kill or to actually kill?
it's understanding the consequences of what's behind that, like all that goes into that. Because
yes.
right now,
Okay.
it's this
No, I
concept
get
of
that.
alienation, where you go to the store, you buy the chicken, you eat it. It's like nothing. What is it? You buy a chicken for £5, but a chicken is not £5. A chicken is like this living creature. It's got love. It's got some form of consciousness. You should understand at least once all that goes into like growing that thing and then having to take its life so that it can, nourish you. I don't think that it's morally wrong, personally, right now, but I think that the test of if you believe it's morally wrong is like, well, then you should at least kill it once. And if you can't kill it once, then you probably shouldn't be eating it.
I could never eat meat ever again.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe that's the way. That's like how you have to be a licensed carnivore. Like, you know how you need a gun license? You need a carnivore license. Kill it, and then you get to eat it from now on. You unlock the levels.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
All I hear in 4K sound.
I got it with 5 minutes.
Disgusting snort in my head.
My head is so terrible.
Mine too. I'm like trying to stay alive. This guy, I'll kill a cheetah. Hay fever is taking him out.
Exactly.
Hay fever is taking him out.
Not even pollen. I can't defeat pollen.
Sorry, also, I'll kill a cheetah, but I can't kill a chicken.
No, but for survival. It was so funny. You were going through so many like amazing things, and all I could think of is there's a splot of mucus in my throat that's trying to suffocate me, and I'm trying not to snort. You know.
This poor guy.
Oh man.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, brilliant. So on that beautiful, very clean note, disgusting. Let's go into the actual session.
Amazing.
Boom.
Mind your goddamn business.
I think the first most important question I think a lot of people are going to ask or want to know is, what the hell is Vula? Can you break it down for us?
Fair.
And by the way, can you break it down for me like I'm a 6-year-old with very little
Knowledge of anything.
grades.
With
Very few good grades.
Bad grades.
I'm failing.
You're good at PE though.
I'm really good at PE,
I
terrible
love
at math
you.
and English.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, break it down for me.
So the first thing to know is that Vula is a Xhosa word. It means open. And the entire mission of
Vula
Vula...
sekele. That the song.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Nick.
Nice.
Wow.
Black on the inside.
Wow, look at this
You know,
guy.
you
Also
know
101.
Nick Black on the inside McGregor.
He's like that guy. You're like that guy.
I'm a bit of a pick me white. You know? I know a few words.
Literally.
I know.
Literally the biggest pick me white. Oh my god, spare me.
I know who Mendoza is.
Spare me.
Terrible.
Sorry, please carry on.
No,
Apologies.
That's all right. Like
Yeah.
you're like the type of white South African that like when PJ Powers was singing, you were like, yes,
Oh
thank
my
you, South
God.
Africa.
We united the country.
yeah.
Racism is over. Yeah. Sorry, please carry on.
So the idea of Vula is basically, for me to start, you need to understand why finance is important for businesses. 6-year-old Evander. And basically, finance is the promise of the future.
Ooh. Wow. Never had anyone put finance like that.
Yeah.
The promise of the future. Why do you say that, my son?
Well, I say
My
it because every business, in the end, is in a journey towards creating value for someone, solving someone's problem, giving them something that they need, helping them, make their way through life successfully. And what you find as you start to grow a business is that your business's, the money that you make is constrained by the customers that you have. But sometimes your ability to make money can far outweigh your current customer base. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're really great at making muffins. You are, I know. Really great at making muffins. You use your oven at home, you bake 30 muffins at a time, and they fly off the shelf because everyone loves your muffins. And because the word is going around that Evander's muffins rock, that you could actually have 1,000 people buying your muffins every day. The issue is that for you to save up to buy the oven that can do 1,000 people a day, it's going to take you a year. You could grow your business and in a year expand in that way. But because that demand exists now, there's another way for you to go about doing this. You can use that promise of the future, right? That promise that actually in a year's time, if I had that bigger oven, I could address that demand. You can use that today. And that promise of the future, you can take to someone who is aligned with you in their thinking and has the same capital that those future customers would represent, except they can give it to you today. And what that means is that you can buy that oven today instead of in a year's time, and you can start making the money you would have made then, now.
Wow.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Why is
That
that?
was such a beautiful,
I've honestly
basically
never really
clear
understanding the
version of
concept.
That's what it is.
You just broke down private equity in the most simple way.
The issue here is that, like anything that relates to the future, there's risk involved. Because what can happen between, my dad I love this saying, It's in Persian originally, but he says there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. Even if you've got the cup and you're about to drink it, there's many things that can happen in this time. And so
crazy that it rhymes in English as well.
I know. Well, no, he's made it. You know,
Okay.
he's a poetic man.
Yeah.
The idea is that risk that an investor is taking is on a lot of different elements of your business. They're taking the risk that, you know, you saying that there's 1,000 people who will buy is actually true. They're taking the risk that you can handle an oven that can do 1,000 muffins instead of 30 at a time. They're taking a risk that you'll actually be able to buy that and install it and use it in the right way, and that in the next 2 months there isn't a huge shock to the economy and people stop buying muffins, or that muffins aren't just a trend, that, you know, soon, okay,
Well, there isn't
everybody eats
100%
muffins and now it's
tariff
just boring.
on ovens.
So exactly, 195% tariff on muffins. There's all of these things that can go wrong before your business gets to realize that full value. And so that, in a way, is kind of what interest is. You hear this idea about an interest rate, right? Okay, cool. I'll give you the £1,000, the $10,000 that you need to buy that bigger oven, but I am also creating value just by providing that to you.
Yeah.
And I'm taking a risk, and that risk needs some form of insurance, and that's the interest that you're going to pay. Right, because I'm also creating value by giving this to you. So, you know, I'm going to give you the $10,000 now. You get to expand your business, make way more money than you would have, and you know, there's loads of ways to structure it. But basically, you should pay me back 10% or 20% of the money that I've lent to you, or maybe I should take a piece of your business because we don't know exactly how much money you're going to make. Maybe me just getting some share of your future profits or your future cash flows makes more sense. There's loads of ways to structure finance. But the basic idea is like, I'm taking a risk because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And literally, until you have the cash in your hand, that risk belongs to me. Because you can just lose the money and say, oh, Nick, I'm sorry. You know, the muffin thing broke, or people don't like muffins anymore, or I poisoned a customer because I didn't cook the egg properly. And so there's historically always been this beautiful relationship between true financiers, true investors, and businesses. And in my opinion, the realest and oldest and most successful investors in history are actually mothers.
Oh,
Wow.
Because
Mom, you're gonna love this part.
Because evolutionary biology, especially for mammals, has designed it in such a way where a mother has to make a daily investment into a child in the form of breast milk. She gives up her precious calories. It's perfectly designed for that child's stage of growth. And what she's doing is she's saying, look, I'm giving this up now because I believe in what you're going to become in the future. And if that investment didn't yield, we literally wouldn't be here right now. So thanks, moms.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
Shout out, Mom.
Yeah, shout out, mom.
That was a...
And so investment isn't this kind of foreign, super sharp 1980s Christian Bale meme situation.
Yeah.
Investment is actually the super organic process that every single living creature in some way or another has participated in. Yeah. And we as humans have just taken it to its next level.
Wow.
That is a phenomenal description.
So that's part one about why investment is important. Now, where does Vula come into it?
Yeah, so exactly.
Yes,
I want
sure.
you to now, you've done such a great rendition or breakdown of what finance is and business and investment. Link my mind, again, as a failing 6-year-old, as to how Vula helps that.
Got it. So Vula, the first thing to say is Vula focuses on sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay,
that is our
what is
arena.
Sub-Saharan? Because some people struggle with that idea.
Okay, so there's the Sahara, which separates northern Africa, places like Tunisia and Egypt and Morocco. Then you've got the Sahara Desert, and then you've got sub-Saharan Africa. That's where all the black people are.
Okay.
Right? So we've got kind of past the bottom of the Sahara, you start to get into Central African Republic, you start to get into DRC, you start to, etc. So basically just not North Africa, East, West, Southern Africa.
Why did you guys decide on that particular geographic location?
That's because of my history and because of my understanding of the problem.
Sure.
And this is kind of part two in our situation, which is, okay, finance is so important for civilization. What's happened in Africa?
Sure.
And what's happened in Africa in the modern age is that finance, especially business finance, is fundamentally broken. Whereas other societies developed a lot of kind of social institutions that handle finance, e.g. here in London, if you have a pretty good idea for a business, maybe starting a restaurant or starting a security company or a cleaning company or anything, if you come up with a clear business plan and you show that you have relevant experience, literally with nothing, with a business plan and your relevant experience, you can go to a bank or a financial institution and say, look, here's my plan, here's my experience. I need $1 million to start this business. This is how I plan to pay you back. And at the very least, the bank will consider it. Now, what's happened in the history of African finance is that most of our banks were not set up to finance businesses. Our banks were set up to finance basically colonial activity, large extractives, large oil and gas operations, mining, maybe a little bit of telecoms, large infrastructure projects. Basically big ticket checks of usually foreign-owned companies that had local branches. Think Anglo-American, think of any of the large oil companies. And what that meant was that investment banking was done at these very large scales for basically corporate companies, right? And this just continued throughout the history of colonization and continues into the modern age. So our banks are actually pretty good at corporate banking. Also, they make a lot of money from transactional banking, just like consumer lending, consumers having bank accounts and doing transactions. They also make a lot of money there.
Capitec or a F&B.
Yeah, absolutely. Or across the continent, it's the same story. And then lastly, because African governments are still very much in a development phase where they're building a lot of infrastructure. This isn't maybe for the 6-year-old you, but governments themselves are taking on loans, right, at very large check sizes as well. Governments raise money in billions of dollars because they need to build an entire bridge network or entire highway network. And they pay back pretty high interest rates. They say, give us $200, $500 million and we'll pay you back 18%. And what that means is that the bank doesn't have to do too much work to source deals. They just rather lend to the government because they're getting pretty high interest rates anyways. And so historically, our banking sector has not built the chops to successfully lend to SMEs. Because why would I do so much work for 1,000 little transactions where I can do a relatively same amount of work for 2 big ones?
So on this point, actually, this is actually what saw the boom of Japan and China.
Please.
What had happened was that there was the leader of China Post, Mao Zedong, a guy, I think his name was Yiping, I can't remember. Yeah.
No. I can't remember his name, but
was it
Yiping?
Yeah. Oh no, maybe you're right. No, sorry. I think you're right. Okay,
Yeah,
It's fine, we'll edit it afterwards.
Look at him, producer's just sitting, lounging. that man never touches the keyboard when we have a question.
It's fine. Basically, all that you need to do is whenever you say it, you're just gonna put whatever the right name is as soon as Evander says it.
Yeah, because I'm going to say it wrong. So what they did was essentially he went to Japan, because Japan was obviously seeing a boom, and had dinner with them, sake, and when you have sake with Japanese people, they tell you the truth, right? They tell you the story behind the story. And he asked them, why are you guys so successful? And they said, how many banks do you guys have? And obviously it was a communist country, so they were like, we have one.
We have one. We have the bank. It's just called the bank.
That's what yeah. So they laughed. They laughed and said, that's why you guys will never be successful. We have 4,000 regional banks.
Wow.
And what happens is, because when you have small regional banks that are willing to fund small businesses, electricians, these little small enterprises, what happens is that people can go and effectively get loans,
100%.
get funding for those little businesses.
Sure.
And what that creates is an economic boom within those regions and those
little
pockets.
Communities.
Whereas
Absolutely.
one bank, like Nick was talking about, it's only really valuable to facilitate the larger type transactions.
Exactly right.
Hence why Japan so boom. Then China copied
learned
the
from
model,
it, yeah.
and now China.
That's so interesting.
And I mean, the same thing happened, by the way, in Germany. So it's not even just
true.
development
Germany,
thing. It's like, it's also called Germany's economic miracle, which is, again, like, think about Germany. They're bankrupt after World War I, bankrupt after World War II, and yet still somehow the economic powerhouse of Europe up until recently.
That's still.
But, you know.
There's a bit.
but like again, why? Because they had a very similar network of funding for small businesses that enable small businesses to become medium to large businesses. Now, why is that especially important in an African context? So you guys get the idea. Financial institutions are not set up for the success of SMEs to grow in an African context.
SMEs, small to medium
enterprises. And so what ends up happening is it's just a difficult relationship. There's no trust, and over generations, these SMEs stop engaging with the financial sector. So your muffin guy, even if the business is growing, he's already heard from 20 of his friends, like, don't even waste your time trying to go to a bank. Don't even waste your time, because any of the other lenders are going to charge you such terrible fees. And the process of you applying is going to be so bad for you that it's not even worth your time to try.
Yeah.
And so what we have is this history of non-engagement, where African businesses, they don't even try to touch financiers. They just say, look, I'm going to go to a loan. If I live, I live. If I die, I die. I'll try something else. Yeah, sure. And that's massively constrained our growth. Now, just to say, in the context of Africa, why is that so important? Basically because of jobs. Because we are, over the next 10 years, going to be adding more young people to the global workforce than the rest of the world combined.
No way.
Right? So in terms of what is called demographic dividends, we could be reaping these demographic dividends. We've got loads of young people being born. Our median age right now is 19.
Wow.
The median age of the UK is 40.
Wow.
Right?
Median age in Africa, or?
Median age across Africa.
Oh, wow.
Across all of Africa, 19 years old. So what that means is, where are all of these young people going to go to? What high-skilled jobs, what jobs that enable them to fulfill their own dreams and aspirations? How do we actually get them there? And the reality is like, man, the world's becoming even more competitive. AI is taking the jobs that you thought you were going to have, right? You've got a bunch of people in these more industrialized countries that they don't even know what the flip they're doing, and they're all becoming old anyway, so they can't do any work. So where's the world's kind of labor base of the future going to come from? It is either going to come from Africa, or we're going to get screwed, and it's going to become a crisis. And there's a big thing around kind of like startups, tech startups, very sexy tech startups. Why tech startups work in Silicon Valley and London and whatever, at a fundamental level, is because the amount of work labor base that you have gets decoupled from the revenue, the money that you make. That's what technology enables, right? That's what allows WhatsApp to make $10 billion with a team of 10 people.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily want that in Africa.
Why?
Well, because you want businesses that can grow linearly with the labor base, because we need to provide more jobs.
But is that, I would just ask the question.
Please.
Is that where the world is heading? Right, because we are moving in a more technologically advanced world. Are we effectively trying to slow down that progress or stall that progress to satisfy the population?
Not at all. Because when you're saying like that's where the world is heading, I think you're drinking a lot of Silicon Valley Kool-Aid. What I mean by that is that the reason why you see the kind of cutting edge, the supposedly cutting edge of the world being, like whatever. Let's take a business like WhatsApp or OpenAI or whatever, is because it's built on hundreds of layers of infrastructure underneath it.
Yeah.
Right? In California, from the 1800s, they had to build the telephone poles and the railway lines, and then dig the gold, and then panhandle it, and then start to generate societies and institutions that supposedly have some, effective ability to govern, and all of this stuff built on top of each other. And then banks, and then venture capitalists, and then 7 generations of venture capitalists who had done their own software and hardware and telecoms and, Bell Labs and all of this history. And then OpenAI comes and says, look at us, we're like the sexiest startup in the world. And they are flipping sexy. But they're built on the shoulders of giants. In Africa, we still need to industrialize, bro. Like, you can build a futuristic factory, but it's still a factory. It's not like hey, we're going to build like a a WhatsApp bot that helps. No, you build like a power station.
I guess, yeah.
So all I'm trying to say is we need to make like seeing ourselves as industrialists sexy again.
That is so interesting. So, for example, like let's say South Sudan, for example, not a particularly well-developed country, it needs a lot of infrastructure. They still need roads, or they need
100%.
pavements, and then they
100%.
need telephone lines,
Yeah.
and these could all be
And they need water, they need
SMEs
plumbing. Correct.
That could be essentially funded by what
Yeah.
Vula brings to them.
What
to
need
get
what
there.
need to become basically the industrial giants of our continent have not been built yet, right? They just haven't been built yet. And I would love this generation of African founders not to be kind of only drinking the Silicon Valley Kool-Aid of like, how do I make like a chat bot or like, but it's like, yo, how do you build using modern tools and methods the most effective new forms of industry that are not only going to push Africa forward, but that the rest of the world can learn from? Because, you know, like a place like South Sudan has a lot of constraints on it. So how do you navigate those constraints? How is like a place like Namibia able to recycle something insane like 94% of its water because they built that infrastructure for themselves and the rest of the world have learned?
But is there not an issue with, because I take your point that there is a lot of kind of groundwork to be done in some of these countries and some of these more developing nations. I hate that term, but whatever. But is there not the issue, or the positive, however you want to see it, of neocolonialism, whereby the people who have built these infrastructures and who have ran these infrastructures for years are essentially just transporting that to a South Sudan and saying,
100%.
here we go, you
It's
don't
a
need to
huge
spend
problem.
20, 30 years trying to develop this yourself. I'm China, I got you.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it. And you know what's even worse is that it's not even in reality, it's not even the work of, and this is called development, right? This is called international development. This is what you're describing.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it's not only just the importation of the technologies and the infrastructure. After a while, it becomes the importation of the philosophies and the very ways of life. Oh, you're not a consumer. You don't have like the latest T-shirt. You're not live streaming yourself on Instagram all the time. Are you even part of the modern economy? Like, why am I as a South Sudanese person being put under this type of flipping pressure? Like the rest of the world hasn't necessarily been made better by this. So this is exactly right.
It's actually, sorry, just on that point, well, to Evander's point as well, because like I did hear a story, for example, like in Sierra Leone, they were trying to build farms, you know, kind of teaching a man to fish as opposed to, you know, giving him the fish, and then there was a point where the United States corn industry or something stepped in, because essentially what they were doing is they were just importing all the corn they couldn't sell in the States to Sierra Leone and get a massive tax rebate back in the States, as opposed to, they would actually like, no, we're not going to give you the funding for that because it's actually bad for our economic model, which is quite scary. For example, you're not creating that local industry, you're literally just giving the man the fish.
Most of, I would say, like there are
That's quite
plenty
predatory,
of
actually,
there are plenty of people with sincere, like real sincerity to make the world a better place working in international development and aid. But I would characterize the past 70 years of the kind of aid experiment. In some places it's worked pretty well, like in healthcare, for instance. But generally, especially towards economic development, it's been a huge failure. And most of it is exactly because of this. Because in the end, because of the structure of the world right now, where you basically have these competing nations that at the end of it really are out for themselves, that even processes and mechanisms of international development and aid and cooperation between countries, in the end, the question ends up, well, what's in it for us?
Yeah, and that's always the bottom line. Sadly.
So,
but what I will say, so can I just ask, because we've gone around quite far.
Yeah.
From
I
the point-
wanted us to get deep into the problem
That you're
set
trying to,
first.
yeah, fine. And I think you've done a good job with that. But give me a little short summary of what Vula does. Like, just tell me in the bullet.
Hungry for it.
If we were in the elevator,
Give me the elevator.
if we were in the elevator, I'm an investor.
So Vula,
tell me what it does.
Yeah. So Vula
Boom.
builds AI agents for all players in the African SME funding ecosystem to interact 10x more efficiently.
No, that's still complicated for me. Break that
Fine.
down further.
6-year-old Evander.
Yeah, 6-year-old.
We've built an AI assistant for African businesses to find their best funding options automatically.
Boom.
Phenomenal. That is amazing.
But more than that, what we've built is a tool for funders to also run their processes 10 times more efficiently.
What are the main points? What does that mean? What is the main things?
Remember before I was saying that banks and funders generally find this whole process of funding businesses super expensive. And that's why they do the big check sizes instead of the little check sizes. Well, we've built a system that enables them to do those little check sizes, just automate huge parts of it. So that now they can comfortably do 1,000 of those smaller checks, actually advance their local economy instead of just giving the money to the one big guy, do much less work, but that the economic impact is so much greater.
So you're essentially driving the process down to zero.
100%.
The cost of the process down to
The
zero.
cost of the
which you then
process.
increase the output because you give you allow.
Because now you can do
more.
a smaller check size, right?
Yes.
Before, it's like my unit economics didn't make sense. I have to pay this team of 8 analysts to check out this one deal, whether the deal is for 100K or 10 million. They still have to do the same amount of work.
Absolutely.
So-
I mean, in terms of doing those checks, African economies sometimes don't have the same information as you would about
They have terrible
a Danish
data.
company
There's no
or
data.
whatever. So it's quite difficult.
So you also
find
have to
that
create
info.
new
That's a
flows
good
for the
point.
data to come in. And this is exactly where the AI assistant comes in. Because businesses have been sick and tired of having to go through a flippant 10-day, fill in this PDF, answer all of these questions about your business over and over and over again for 20 different funders. I'm not even sure if this guy makes sense for me or not. He hasn't told me what the real rules are, what the eligibility criteria is. He just wants my information. And then in 2 months' time, he'll say, oh, we apologize, but you haven't made it through the process. Or even worse, he'll string me along for 4 to 6 months. And then when he shows me the deal terms, he'll say, yeah, I'm going to charge you 140% interest. And you say, well, I just can't do that for my business. Right? So you're kind of always stuck between a rock and a hard place. Vula, as the AI assistant, is one place. You provide your data once and it goes out and interacts with all of these hundreds of funders and says, well, I'll check first if it's even worth your time to chat. But then our agents are also on the funder side. So those AI agents are also having a chat. And so what we're basically building towards, and why I wanted to create the context for you, is basically a future funding ecosystem across Africa where the right funding finds you. Where these AI agents
The right funding finds you.
Yo, is that the catch line? Should be.
We've got like 10 cash lines. Another one is human time is precious, machine time is cheap.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we're having thousands of these machine conversations every day. Check your business's eligibility. Check how attractive it is for this funder. And then only once those pre-checks have been done do you even get bothered about it. Right? And the idea is increasingly what that helps us to do is to create a very clear map of what business activity is actually taking place in Africa. So that data problem starts being as much of a problem. And then also more funders can start to participate, because so many funders are like afraid of Africa. They're like, oh no, it's so risky. Like we don't know anything about it. We'd much rather pay an American or German company to go and do like whatever, like capacity building for African CEOs than to actually put money into the ecosystem. And that's a huge moral failure in my opinion. And so
is that so much moral failure, or is that quite frankly smart money, in that if you're going to a place that is known to be more tumultuous, at least tumultuous when it comes to funding, regulating, are you making the call that it's just really more safe and easier?
So the reason why it's a moral failure is because a lot of the capital that goes into these activities is not commercial capital. It's capital that is meant for development. And so what I mean by that is it's things like grants, or it's things like very, very low concessional loans.
Foundations or...
Yeah, exactly. Foundations, charities, what are sometimes called development finance institutions. And basically, historically, they've been more comfortable with like, look, there's no local firms that can actually do the work of development of Nigeria. So we'd much rather pay this like German consulting firm to go and do a 12-week course for Nigerian CEOs to get them ready for investment. And then after that 12-week course, that like a Nigerian CEO that's already running a $10 million a year company, right? But he's just not running it with like like with Sage and QuickBooks and whatever the flip. You know, he's gone through this course and he's like, yo, I'm busy trying to run a business in the most hostile business environment in the world. I am 20 times the business person that any of these advisors and mentors you've given me are. I'm here for funding. Where's the funding? And at the end of the 12
Pay me.
Yeah, at the end of the 12
That sounds very Nigerian.
They say, hey,
Where's the money?
they say, hey,
Give me the money.
You've got this great pitch deck. Now go out and get your funding. And he says,
Yeah.
but who? From who?
Yeah.
And that's just historically been the pattern. And so what Vula is really building up towards is being the infrastructure through which these different stakeholders are interacting. But there's one more like really important part of our system, which is like we've got the SME tools and we've got the funder tools, but we're also tracking a huge amount of this data.
And the data pool.
Yeah, in the past, you had to pay teams to just like write a report on a local ecosystem. Like you'd pay tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to be like, what's going on in the Nigerian e-transport sector, right? Or like, hey, I heard something's happening in Namibian water purification. What's going on there? And you'd pay these people and they do like a snapshot, like the 2023 snapshot of Namibia's water filtration ecosystem. And then you'd have that as like a PDF report, and you'd like read about it, like 100 people would read it, and that's it. That's like, that thing lives and dies in that way.
Yeah.
And our whole idea was like, if you're going to be pay to build up infrastructure that creates real-time views of these ecosystems. So that as businesses live and die, as they succeed or fail, you're learning real lessons. How much did these guys get funded? From who? What happened that they ended up going bankrupt? Or what happened that they ended up taking off? And let's not like store that in like a Word document or a PDF. The beauty is like where AI is at now, we can actually track those stories in real time and then create a living knowledge base for different investors or ecosystem supporters so that they can ask themselves that question and get actual answers.
That's phenomenal.
It's a game changer. And yeah, for us, it's like, it's a real world application of AI that's got so much hype around it.
Let's have like a real time example, right? So let's say we've got this is the worst business name ever, but I've got
Muffin Co.
Muffin Top.
Muffin Top Co.
Muffin Top Co.
They are a but Swanen mine. No, they sell muffins. And
they gotta be muffin sellers.
Yeah, they don't eat muffins in Botswana.
I don't know. Botswana people, they have particular tastes.
What do they eat in Botswana?
They eat morogo.
They eat morogo.
Morogo.
Okay, so we've got we Chippies morogo company, right?
Got it.
And so they want to create more morogo. I don't know what it is.
Isn't morogo like the bugs?
No, morogo is spinach.
Spinach.
What's the bugs?
Mopani worms.
Huh? Mopani worms.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
this is why you guys have put me on with token South Africans. Keep going.
Coconuts.
So we're making morogo chips in Botswana.
Okay,
Keep
nice.
going.
Okay, brilliant. So we do that, right? We realize we're actually making quite a lot of these morogo chips. And am I saying this terribly?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Oh,
Keep
nice.
going.
Okay, thank you. You just start laughing. Like you know it's Swana. Anyway. So we're making more of these and we realize we could make more, you know, and we want to find an investor. So what do? They sign up to Vula.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good question. Walk us through.
Yeah,
but also walk us through simply and clearly.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Don't take me on a windy road.
It's very simple and
No,
clear.
he has. But I want to just the way like the boom, boom, boom.
You sign up to Vula. What does it look like to sign up to Vula? You put in your website, if you have a website. If you have a business plan, you drop your business plan in. And our AI goes through that website, learns about what your business is, creates a profile automatically, and immediately gives you an elevator pitch for your own business.
Oh, wow. Like a PowerPoint?
We're going to get, as in, we also create a pitch for you. But first, it's just an elevator pitch, just a simple couple sentence way of you to pitch your own business to a potential investor.
Okay.
And then it parameterizes your business. So it asks, what are all the sectors that these guys work in? In this case, it would be like food and beverages. It would be agriculture, depending on exactly what you do, what country you're based in, what countries you serve. And so just from this initial seed of data, without you having to do anything, and after about 20 to 30 seconds, it built this profile for you. And that's our way of messaging to this entrepreneur. Hey, you're not here to do work for us to build a database. We're here to do work for you.
And I will add, I've used it. Phenomenal.
Amazing.
Phenomenal.
Thanks, King.
That is
It's
brilliant.
smooth. it's easy. It's the UX and UI or user experience and user interface is just so straightforward.
Shout out to the Vula team.
Yeah, charged with bulletin big time because I was super impressed. You know when your mate tells you they've done something, a part of you is kind of like,
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great. Let's see what it is. And you kind of they give you this thing and it's really clunky and shit, and you kind of oh, this is great. But use this, and I was like, whoa, this is exactly what the world needs. Like that was my immediate reaction.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Thank
you.
Yeah, amazing.
That's huge, guys. Hear that. I mean, I
phenomenal.
love for our engineers to hear that because they put in so much hard work, and for them to hear that feedback is super encouraging.
You should clip that up and play it at the factory. Or
Yeah, we'll play it at the factory.
in the sweatshop that you guys keep them in. Yeah.
Keep working.
Just a big screen. It's normally Nick being like, whack.
Big brother. So you get this, thank you, Evander, you get this super smooth onboarding experience.
Yeah.
And what you get taken to is what we call the funding inbox, which is all of the grants, prizes, and debt funds that you can apply to as a business that we've already checked your eligibility for. And what's cool is that continues to fill itself up automatically. So we've got bots that are scanning the web all the time for new opportunities for you. And then you just get an alert like, hey, we found this. It's like for food and beverage in Botswana, or, you know, there's a charity in the eastern part of Germany that really wants to support Botswanan agricultural companies. You don't have to go searching anymore. The searching is done for you and it's brought to you.
It's like Tinder.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's a Tinder for funders.
Amazing.
They find you, they swipe right. If it's a match,
Phenomenal.
And then as you kind of do more applications, maybe you have to provide more business info. We build up that profile to become more and more clear. So we're not making you just give us your data to have it. It's like you, in doing your application, save yourself time in the future. With the final goal being that we're going to just expand our database to more and more and more funders, be they, you know, debt funders or banks or VCs, private equity firms, etc. And you just are going to have this peace of mind that you have this one home of funding where you can provide your data with peace of mind because you own and control your data as a business. And that data is only going to be shared when you say so to the most relevant funders for you. And the only time you're going to be bothered as a business owner is like when you've made it to the stage where you actually have to talk to a human about doing a deal.
That's phenomenal.
great. I think that's, again, world-changing type ingenuity, creation, tech, and I have no doubts that this is going to be super successful. What I would love to know, though, in a more like philosophical or basic sense, is how did Nic Rawhani get you? As in, what was the journey between you being like, little kid doing your thing to
Doing my thing.
yeah, to the point where you're like, you know what, I actually want to impact sub-Saharan African funding and business development. Like, that's quite a deep journey to go on. And again, you don't have to give us like the deep nitty-gritty of everything per se, but just,
where did the idea come from?
Yeah,
where's
where's you? Who's you? Like,
Yeah,
where
for
did
sure.
that? What's the building blocks of Nic Rawhani that made that?
Yeah, I'd say at a fundamental level, my faith plays a super important role.
And what is
in
that
this.
faith?
So I'm a Baha'i, the Baha'i faith.
Hi.
And the Baha'i faith, at its core, like its core tenet, is that this is actually a really special time for humanity, like this period of our development. And the reason why it's so special is that it's a time when historically human beings have seen themselves as separate villages, separate families, separate nations, separate races, separate religions. And this age is the first age where we actually have the level of maturity and where society is set up in such a way where we can begin to see ourselves as one.
Wow.
Amazing.
And so Baha'is really work to create that unity in the world, in their own local communities, whether that means like working with children and helping those children see themselves as agents of positive change in their community, or whether that's working on global scales, building super cool stuff like Vula. And so my fundamental inspiration is that, my family, my parents raised us with this idea that like my purpose in life is service to humanity.
Damn. That's a big
Phenomenal.
purpose.
Yeah.
It's like you and the Pope.
No, I actually don't think so. I think that there are hundreds of millions, if not billions of people who live their lives every day in this way. I don't think service to humanity needs to be a Vula is going to change $400 billion all across Africa. It can be, I want to be a teacher in my local community. It can be, I want to solve this problem in my village.
Yeah.
Right? It can be at that level.
Yeah.
For me, I was always attracted to technology. I was always attracted to kind of science and how science works and figuring out how the fundamentals of things work. And basically I did engineering at Wits in Joburg as my undergrad. And then at the end of my undergrad, so in Johannesburg, I was doing a range of Baha'i community building activities, especially in townships with youth. Basically young people who were living in townships who were thinking about, okay, I've got to transition from out of high school into either the working world or into tertiary education. And again, this question of how do you morally empower someone who historically has been told and has been shown, not even just told, shown that they are irrelevant to their society, right? How do you get that young person to go, no, I have so much to give.
I've got agency.
I've got agency. I've got talent. I've got drive.
I matter.
I can do it. Not even, I can change things for the people around me.
Yeah.
Because that's the majority of how people in South Africa live. And across Africa, that's how the majority of people live.
Yeah.
And so I was doing this and I realized, man, the conditions are so stacked against these young people. And like, for instance, I had one of my friends and one of the guys who was in my groups, he graduated basically top of his class in his high school in a township called Itsoseng in Joburg. And like the reality was like he was smarter than many of his teachers. He pushed himself. He was taking care of 3 younger siblings at the same time. You know, like a classic, his house doesn't have electricity, blah, 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 all of that. And still, on a national standard, he was terrible. He could maybe make it into a TVET college. You understand? So in his local conditions, he was the man. He was top of the top. He had nowhere else to go because there was nowhere else for him to aspire towards. And yet, when the time came for us to literally work through his kind of college university applications, it started dawning on him like, oh man, I haven't actually made it. I've pushed as hard as I possibly could. And it's still not good enough.
Big fish, small pond.
Kind of thing. And I thought...
But do you think that's because of obviously like didn't have the same education?
Bro, you're being taught English by someone who doesn't speak English. You're being taught science by someone who doesn't know what the flip this book is actually saying. Right? You have your matric exams coming up. Like, you don't have the support or infrastructure. Your parents maybe got up to grade 3, grade 4. They're incredibly intelligent, incredibly hardworking. They've raised you to this point, but they're not necessarily book smart. Where are your references? Where are your positive examples of how you're actually going to take the next step?
So if that guy goes to Eton, he ends up at Oxford or Cambridge, but because of
easily,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay.
So it's a kind of the saying, the cure to cancer could be stuck in the mind of someone who can't access education.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like, you know, talent is distributed evenly, but opportunity definitely is not.
And are we trying to move towards an equal opportunity world?
I mean, I don't know if that's ever going to be possible, but what I'm trying to move towards is at least a world in which confidence can also be, an agency can also be equally distributed. Right? Maybe not opportunity yet, but at least confidence and agency. Because the reality is, especially today, when everyone in the world can immediately compare themselves to whoever is supposedly the most successful, it's so much more disempowering when you've got no one who you can see a path towards.
This is such a massive thing, and I've been struggling not to talk about Kesho for the last 10 minutes, but now I'm going to interject. But I mean, that's been so big for us, because we see with the kids and the kids that we speak to, and we speak to the coaches, the future they see is like being a taxi driver. You know, because that's the person who's at the local shebeen who can buy the drinks, and he looks like
making money.
He looks 100%. Like the man who's the most successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if we can create an environment with Adam Zanzi's Rugby Academy at Rosie's Creche, where kids see, oh no, hang on, Lucanio plays for the Springboks, and he grew up down the road. Sio Kolisi did the same thing, and it's when you're playing rugby or you're doing sport, you feel like you're out there, you're achieving things, you aren't doing negative things that you could do with your time as well. I think it's phenomenal. I couldn't agree more.
It's huge. So sport is definitely one of those drivers, And we've got more increasing examples of sports people who are succeeding out of these communities. What I want to see is that across the board. And I want to see it both for male and females, because that's another element, is that it's so stacked against even more the young woman.
Sure.
Who's kind of both gender roles and roles in their community mean, even in those cases, their expectation is, you're going to stay in the village or stay in the township. Basically, my experience in Johannesburg meant that I was seeing these struggles and the impossibilities of it. And I said to myself, if it's this tough for kids in Joburg, the richest square mile in Africa, how much tougher is it for young people in rural areas?
Yeah.
So I went to the Eastern Cape to a place called Ekawe, and I ran the same process there for about a year and a half, and it went really well. And it just got me starting to think about this at a systems level, because I realized, like, man, it's going to take me 10 years. If I really want to change Ekawe, which is like this small community of like 100,000 people, it will take me 10 to 20 years to transform this place. That's not scalable. And so for me, I was like, what is it that I can do to just increase the probability and the odds for everyone? And I was lucky enough to get a Commonwealth scholarship supported by the Department of Higher Education. Because I was like, I was the only like white guy in a 20-kilometer radius. I was living in the township. They were like,
"Are you white?
What is this guy doing?" Well, I was the only non-black guy. I was the only non-Xhosa person. And these Xhosa people, they were suspicious of me.
That's
like,
what we call a spanner in the works, my friend.
I mean, in a township, I'm definitely white.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
but what are you actually?
I'm Iranian.
Oh, there we go.
I'm Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
Technically BE level 1. If you need a silent partner, I'm the guy. But like,
please note I made no jokes during that time.
But like the idea is that it's like, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship for science and technology for development, and that afforded me the opportunity to come to Imperial College London to study sustainable energy futures and think about future energy systems, and then think about the financing of those energy systems in an African context. Ask myself, how can rural communities begin to be active agents in their own infrastructure development? And then I got to study a lot of macroeconomics, think about it from the financing perspective, develop my own perspective on finance. Then I worked at McKinsey, first in private equity, then in energy systems, and then in African finance and development.
Wow.
And so I kind of, especially in the kind of finance and aid world, I got to see behind the curtain of the sausage factory.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, man, like, no wonder this isn't working. Like, there's no good tools. There's no good systems for tracking knowledge. Everything is expensive because everything is manual. And in many cases, the system exists to perpetuate itself.
Yeah.
Right? The people exist there so that they can get their salary and continue going. But like, how much of this is actually solving the problem it's meant to solve? And how much of the right skills do people have to actually fix that?
I think that's why when I made that joke earlier about, you said you kind of live to serve people and to create. I think when I made the joke about Pope and you, is really because of what you just said. Most people live, at least from my experience, in the capitalistic world, live for the bottom line. How do I get something out for me and my family?
Yeah.
How do I make sure that I'm okay? Screw everyone else. Good luck. It's a hard knocks world. And not a lot of people think, how do I work to give back? And that's a very important part. How do I work to give back? Because the working part, no one wants to work to give back, right? It's just too much. It's
too much extra burden.
It's too much, yeah. Ronald Reagan had a very famous quote. He met a young lady and her parents were both liberal Democrats. And he, said to the lady, what do you want to do when you're older? And she said, no, I want to give back as much as I possibly can to as many people as I possibly can. And he said, great. He said, why don't you come over to my house? You mow my lawn. I'll pay you $50 to do that. And you can then go take that $50 and give it to the homeless man standing outside the garage. And he can then buy food, get a home. And she said, well, I don't want to do that. I mean, why would I do that? Yeah. Just get the homeless man to come mow your lawn, and then he can take the money from doing the work. Yeah. And then he said, welcome to the Republican Party.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're a capitalist.
Now you're capitalist.
Yeah.
Because everyone has this kind of altruistic nature in their, in their heart of hearts.
In the heart of hearts, I say in your soul.
Yeah, but when you get down to it, and like you now have to actually do the work that comes with being altruistic, everyone goes, wait a second, I think I'm going to go the other way.
I mean, I really like that point. I think there's so many things on that I want to kind of talk to. One is, I do think one of the amazing things about this system of capitalism that's kind of been developed is that in certain circumstances, it does work really well to transform the individual trying to basically get their daily needs in to become a net benefit for all of society. I actually think that part of it is amazing, right? The idea that these kind of mechanisms and structures exist in our society where you can do something that you're interested in, where you can kind of plug into a system, you can learn, you can develop, you can grow and work, and at the same time that enables this larger system to actually generate value at a large scale. That's amazing. Like, and that part of it I think is wonderful, and it's something we should definitely continue on a societal level. I think it's more, my problem is that so many of these systems, economic or political, sort of become ideological in a way. It's like, oh, you're a capitalist or you're a Republican. But like, I believe our primary identity as human beings is a spiritual one. It's actually got to do with your character. It's got to do with your nature, the virtues that you develop within yourself, your love or your compassion or your insight or your generosity. And that these systems, whether they're capitalist or socialist or communist or any of these ists, there's no silver bullet for humanity. The silver bullet for humanity is for us to start treating each other more like family so that we can make smarter decisions. So like, I agree with you.
What if I don't like my family?
Nobody likes all of their family. That's the reality of it, but you still work for them.
Yeah,
that's the point. It's like, you said it yourself perfectly. People are very used to, like, our reptilian brain goes like, I need to make sure that I and my people survive. And the hack is start to expand the circle of who you consider your people. And if you do that, you can make magical things happen.
Oh, man.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I suppose, just to correct everyone, it was Marx did say it was capitalism and then socialism and then communism. So that is the silver bullet. Who said
that?
So
Malcolm
Marx
X.
said that. Yeah, Malcolm Marx. Malcolm Marx, the Springbok rugby player, 2-time winning. He not only won 2 World Cups and Alliance Series, he also stated how a society should run. But yeah, I completely get that. But I couldn't agree with you more, right? There is something, I think, spiritual about humanity that we are all in the same playing field. We can all laugh at the same things, and we should look at how do we branch out of that immediate group and how we look at things.
You know what? Sorry, is your point finished?
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it's only getting worse. I think your dream is only getting further away from us as we progress as a peoples.
Interesting. Tell me more.
I think with the rise of social media, clout, fame, people are even more focused on what they can get as opposed to what they can give.
It's true.
To the point where even in the form of giving, I don't know if you guys have seen these very like cringe videos on Instagram.
We're gonna go and give this guy.
They'll go and they'll give someone like food or money.
It's so cringe,
but they'll record it.
I do cry when I see them. A lot of the time.
Of course you do.
Like I like it. It's
because we've been primed that way to make it.
Yeah, it's even become its own
industry. It elicits an emotion out there because that's how society just moves, right?
Sure.
So that even giving and generosity requires an audience.
Okay, so this I find this so interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I'm not taking aim at British culture and stuff, but we are talking about a culture that was very, very individualistic, and that was transported to the Americas, and it became honed in the Americas, and that got exported everywhere, right? So that particular culture of individualism, which I don't think particularly existed in many other places in the world, especially East Asia, subcontinent Asia, Africa, South America, even North America, where it was very community-based. Collectivism. How do we do it? Okay, guys, we all need to get together to redirect this river so we can make sure there's water in the rice fields. Hang on, this guy doesn't have a house.
let's build him a house. You know, like that was the whole concept of a lot of the world we lived in. Don't get me wrong, there was obviously lots of horrible stuff going on. The Mongols were running through Europe and the Middle East.
Granddaddy.
You know what I mean?
My great granddaddy.
Oh, no way! Oh my God, he put up serious numbers.
The chances were, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He's talking about human bodies, by the way. Nick is talking about human bodies. And he said, serious numbers? What?
Unreal numbers.
Nah, bro, it's like 5% of the planet is his descendants right now.
In terms of genocide,
Genghis Khan.
I think he was talking about genocide. Genghis Khan is like 5% of the population.
Talking about both. But it was a very particular culture that was spread, and now what you're saying, I think it's exponentially growing, that culture of individualism, because of social media. And what am I doing? Look where I'm at on holiday. You're not living the same life that I am. You're worse than me. And I think that is
so
dangerous.
I definitely agree with this. We were having this chat before the pod, me and Evander, just about how the forces of society like are becoming increasingly honed to basically keep us as like young people in a very particular space, which is like basically like keep us kind of immature, because children are more directed by their wants and impulses than like good thinking, to kind of keep us non-committal, because as long as you haven't committed, you can always buy the next thing or go on to the next thing, to keep us individualistic and consumeristic, keep us kind of defining our identities by what we buy or what we wear. You know, it's kind of these classic things. And social media is just becoming sharper and sharper and sharper, because for the past 30, 40 years, literally all of the smartest people in the world, all of them, 80% of them, have been paid millions of dollars a year to get our attention and to hone it for these purposes. It's like it's you versus 20 stadiums of the smartest people for the past 40 years and literally trillions of dollars. And that's like the modern struggle, is like, how do I not give in to some of these forces of society, but then also think about how we can utilize some of this technology? And like one example for me, and he's an example for me in many aspects of my life, is my older brother, right? So he utilizes his...
Who is, by the way, the biggest Renaissance man I think I've ever
Absolutely. Across. At Dr. Smile X Leo on Instagram.
Yeah, Dr. Smile, he's a celebrity dentist in South Africa.
Yeah.
He's also a DJ and a singer.
He's a rapper.
He's a rapper.
Yeah, recording artist.
Yeah.
That is a phenomenal array of skills
already. And he's a jeweler. So he's also
a
Africa's premier jeweler. He serves kind of Africa's top rappers, celebrities, in making them jewels, everything from premium grills to rings to all of it.
And the way I met him, it was actually quite interesting, because I met him in one of his other 16 jobs. He was, we were both auditioning.
And he's a lecturer as well, sorry.
Wow.
Yes. He was auditioning for SA Fashion Week.
Yes, he's also a model.
He was a model, yeah.
Okay.
And we were like in the hall, and SA Fashion Week is brutal. It's like coming into like one of those farm pens. But you basically stand there and everyone bonds, and the people are 3 hours late, and then you kind of, have to go forward and show your stuff. But speaking to him, he was like the nicest guy there, really kind, really sweet, really kind of homey, whereas everyone else is kind of like, oh, I'm a model. Yeah. And got talking to him, and that was years ago. That was like 15 years ago, I would say. But then he just went on to do so much.
Yeah.
So
and continues to do so much.
I'm not surprised at all that he's one of the inspirations.
Yeah, what I wanted to give an example of is, okay, so we're in the society where there are all of these forces. He's utilizing his social media, for instance. He has this thing called Project Smile, where, he's a celebrity dentist. He does a lot of aesthetic, reconstructive, super dope dentistry. But what he also does is that he finds people who have been through something traumatic, or where their smile has really been affecting their quality of life and wouldn't in 100 years be able to afford his services. And he does a pro bono case for free.
Wow.
And he features that on his Instagram. But the way he does it is so opposite to like these guys who are like, let me find an audience just for giving. Because it's actually about showing the entirety of, all of these hundreds of thousands of followers that he has. Like, you can do this too. Like, okay, I'm a celebrity dentist, I've got this large channel, whatever, but everybody has the ability in their own domain to also give back, to also work. And this is why when you were saying like, oh, it's you and the Pope or whatever, I so fundamentally disagree with that, because the reality is that there are billions of people in the world, whether they have a faith, they believe in God, or they just feel it in the core of their bones, that know that the right thing to do is to put in work and to sacrifice for the benefit of others. It's just that right now in our society, there are all of these warping forces that take that really true desire, that like godliness, and they warp it into whatever else there is.
But the warping is the reality, though.
The warping
reality is what it is, and you don't believe your lying eyes, but like that, it is what it is.
But
like
maybe we're just
there.
not hearing about it as much as we think. It's quite funny. So one of our events, Johnny, mutual friend.
Yes.
So Johnny was there, and then he brought his friend, who was also like another English guy. So we're chatting about what we do at Keshaw and stuff, and he was like, "Why do all South Africans do charities?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "Every South African I know who lives in London actually has their own foundation or their own charity or their own CIC." And I was like, "That is phenomenal." And it's probably because we have this shared understanding of trauma in South Africa and what's going on, and we can do so much better, and we can help people. So to your point, Nick, I think it's probably having more and more and more.
Yeah, we start seeing more.
Yeah.
What I will add, though, what I will say to that, to your more aspect is, I think the one thing, weirdly enough, that individualism has done for us is that it's created tech giants and tech businesses. Now, why that comes back almost to eat it is because with the development of things like AI, what you effectively have is a world where we're moving towards humans having to do less on a day-to-day basis, right? We're not having to do the manual labor that we used to have to do maybe 15, 20 years ago. And everything else, even the kind of intellectual labor, is being reduced somewhat.
Like writing emails.
Literally, all that stuff is being reduced somewhat. And the more developed we get with AI, the less we will effectively have to do. And what that does, that leaves us time to do the things we want to do. And I think in that world, there is a greater opportunity to connect. There's a greater opportunity to see your brother or your sister as someone who you want to help, someone who you want to assist, someone who you want to alleviate from poverty or pain or struggle. And I don't think technology initially set out to do that, or at least the billionaires behind these ideas. But I think the effect is now, crossing fingers, that we're moving towards that world.
That's so funny. Malcolm Marx also said this.
He's a very intelligent man.
He's such a
also, he's got the great throw-in.
He's so
accurate.
Good. And great with board and hand as well. It's phenomenal. No, but Karl Marx did speak up. Sorry, this is not like the communist propagation.
I was about to say, this is
propagation podcast.
This is Nick's red meat.
Yeah.
Like, this is Nick's red meat.
He's done 3. I think he did Mao and 2 Karl Marx.
No, but anyway, he's a...
Okay, we can talk about my political affiliations another time. But in terms of what he said and how we get to a place where technology is so automated and all those things within the economy that humans could do, we no longer have to do. And therefore, why would we have starvation? Why would we have anything? Why would we have, how do I say this? Yeah, why would we have any food shortages anyway, or housing shortages, or whatever? Because AI and robots can do all of that for us. And then like a Marxist utopia is that we all kind of just like hang around in the trees and like paint and like play football or whatever, because everything is provided to us by the systems that exist.
Yeah, Karl Marx had a point.
Yeah,
I think my issue with what you just
one good point.
I think my issue with what you just described is you've got a view right now of like, okay, AI is going to help us do less in our daily jobs, send less emails, blah blah blah. I say the people who actually have to send emails for their work in the world, there's 8 billion. I think that there's like 1 billion people where that's their daily reality. And then there's 7 billion others where that's just not even their reality. It's just not even, they're not working in the knowledge economy. They're not like part of the upper middle class. They're not in the top 20% of earners worldwide, etc. And my question is actually, like, how does this AI, how is this going to work for all of those people? Because supposedly this is something that the entire planet can benefit from. Supposedly this is a revolutionary industry. And yet, like, you know, if the robots are starting to do the banana cultivation in Cote d'Ivoire, like, they're going to need electricity from Subway. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to need to charge. So again, the way that I think about it is like, we've got these layers of infrastructure and development, and there are some parts of the planet which have the opportunity to massively accelerate that compared to like here in Britain that had to go through like 300 years of development. Like, you could do it pretty quick, and you could do it in these amazing new and inspirational ways. And we don't have to be taken along for the ride. Like the way that you're talking about, you're like, I hope that where like our overlords, our tech owner overlords take us to is in that good future way. What I'm trying to say is like, the beauty of some of these technologies is that we as individual people have never been more powerful.
That is amazing. Preach.
So we can decide.
Pastor Rawhani.
We can decide. We can decide where it goes to from here.
Yeah.
And we can decide if we kind of read from the script of like, okay, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg wants you to have like your AI best friend and girlfriend. And then after like 6 months of talking, she's like, and I would love you even more if you bought this Ford truck at $17.99. You know what I mean? Like, we could just go down that path.
Black Mirror-esque.
You know, be taken as prisoners. But the truth is that these technologies, they really are increasingly belonging to more and more of us. Like, we as humanity have built this humongous base of a heritage, of a technological heritage. And what I love about AI is that it is really making that more and more accessible if we treat it right. And like any technology, you know, like atomic weapons can be used to blow up poor Japanese people, or they can be used to generate loads of clean electricity. We decide which way. Kanye asked this in 2013. Kanye. He said, which way?
Not you invoking Kanye.
I'm just saying, 2013 Kanye, everybody.
2013
That's what
Kanye,
I'm talking
fair.
about.
Yeah.
Fine.
Which way do we decide it goes? And that decision, in reality, it's the decision of each and every single one of us. How much are we going to use social media in the ways that they want us to versus the way that we want to? How are we going to use these AI agents to build new businesses or find new opportunities to serve others? How creative are we going to be? And there are loads of people who are thinking about it in this way and who are going to be shaping tomorrow. You can just decide.
That's amazing. I think that's an amazing place to wrap up.
Yeah, I think
you so much, Nic.
that is exactly why we brought Nic Rawhani on the show, to give us that kind of inspo, man. That is food for thought.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, make it happen. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.
That was amazing.
Love you guys. Mwah, mwah.